Hello, everybody, and welcome back to 6++. Tom, very LowestofMen here, and it's Grotmas. We're getting some new detachments, so I'm going to dive in and start looking through and talking about the Death Guard tonight. So obviously we've got Games Workshop bringing out a bunch of new detachments for all the armies in the game. Should be lots of really fun stuff to talk about with that. And I think it's just a case of diving in, seeing what they're about. I'll try and give you some sense of what I think they're about and how they're going to work. I'll be better at that for some armies than others, but it should be a lot of fun anyway. Really exciting that we're all getting all these amazing new rules. Certainly for an army like Death Guard, who don't have a book yet, I think this is massively exciting and a great opportunity for them as well. So let's get into it. We've got the Flyblown host here. And I think this is very much leaning into the kind of the sort of flies and coverage of Death Guard bodies in horrible kind of bugs and muck, and all the impact of that. And it's a detachment that I think at first glance is all about infantry, all about Terminators, Plague Marines, and getting stuck into the opponent, but also being obnoxious to shift. It's got a really fun range of tools. Is it as powerful as the other Death Guard detachment? Maybe not, but that one's obviously had some love and been adjusted over time. So there's no knowing necessarily exactly how that's going to shake out. But I think there's a lot of fun stuff here for a Death Guard player to tuck into. And it's definitely one of those ones where you read through the enhancements and the strats and you're like, I like a lot of the tricks on offer here and what's available. So let's talk about some of the army rules. Before I do that, please do hit like and subscribe and leave us a comment if you haven't already. So, Verminous Haze. This is the detachment rule. Very simple, but very powerful, right? Your Death Guard infantry units that are not embarked within a transport have Scouts 5 and Stealth abilities. Obviously, for Death Guard, they're slow. Their infantry are slow. Scout 5 is huge for some of those units. You think about Death Shroud or Blight Lords, who are incredibly slow. Being able to get a very nice movement boost at the start of the game is really, really useful. I like that they've made it so you can't apply it to when you're in a transport. I think that probably stops some sort of bizarre Death Guard Alpha Strike from happening. But in general, awesome rule. You're going to want Nurglings to create some lanes that you can advance into with your army at the start of the game. But obviously, you can apply a lot more pressure with an army like Death Guard if you're able to put those really durable infantry bricks in the right places at the start of the game. Stealth is obviously great. Death Guard have ways to get minuses to hit in the other detachment, but just army-wide, -1 to hit in shooting is really, really nice on your infantry. And, on already durable units, I think that's going to be a real pain for people to shift as well. Not quite as flexible as the debuffing and the sort of miasma abilities in the Plague Company detachment, but on your infantry across the board, if you skew really hard into this, it's really nice. It's going to be really annoying on things like Poxwalkers as well. So I think, there's plenty you can do with this, plenty of interest in the detachment rule. And certainly people trying to shift Death Guard at range are going to really, really start to hate that stealth before too long. So as far as the enhancement goes, we've got several really powerful ones. So we've got the Droning Chorus, which it goes on an infantry model and allows you to give ranged weapons in the bearer's unit assault. So that's just nice for being able to reach out and punk things a little bit more, have a unit that's able to cover ground, put out some shooting as it goes. Maybe it's not getting into combat that turn, but it can get into a position to do some harm at range. And obviously assault, just really useful to have. And again, on slow infantry, it means you can throw up a unit and be shooting. Imagine 10 Blight Lord Terminators there. They're not charging this turn, but they're just running up, going to get a bunch of shooting off. Next up, we have Insectile Murmuration. And this gives you essentially each time modelled in the bearer's unit make an attack that's targeting a unit within contagion range, you can reroll a wound roll of 1. I'm not massively fussed about this. I think this is kind of fine. But I don't think it's essential in any sense, really. So I think it's just one of those things where it's nice, but it's not game-changing. You can already get reroll wounds through other means and other ways anyway. Next up, we've got Rejuvenating Swarm. Death Guard infantry model only. At the end of each phase, the bearer regains all of its lost wounds. Now, I really like this one. I think it's really fun. Obviously, you can have it hidden on a character deep inside a unit, but I think the use of it that I really like is like a lone deep striking Terminator Sorcerer or Lord of Contagion, Lord of Virulence even, dropping in behind the enemy lines. Maybe they're going to score an action when they arrive or threaten their home objective. And, if you're trying to kill them and you undercommit, and obviously units that are left back in the back lines often do struggle to dunk a sort of character like that in one go. Then the healing up is going to become really annoying really quickly. I love the idea of pairing that character with a Beast of Nurgle, which obviously has a similar rule where it heals up in the phase, and using those two as a little tag team to go and cause all sorts of havoc behind enemy lines. I really, really like this one. I'd definitely be taking this, and I think probably Droning Chorus is definitely worth considering as well. Next up, you've got Plague Veil. This I need to see played, but I think this has an enormous amount of potential. It gives the bearer's unit essentially 18-inch lone op as long as you're in range of an objective marker that you control. Now, I think if you can really lock down a flank with a big brick of Terminators, Death Shroud, Blight Lords, etc., or Plague Marines, and as long as you can make that control secure, this becomes really powerful because suddenly you've got one side that you're pushing out from, and it's really hard for them to shoot you back in any meaningful and effective way. Now, the fact that you need to control the objective means that this has got some risk, because if they can flip the point, suddenly they can shoot you. It's not necessarily going to provide consistent protection in like an edge case. So I see this being good on a unit that's pushing like your safest side. But I definitely think people are going to find this really annoying to deal with, and I definitely think it's worth including just to give you the potential of securing a portion of the board and then pushing out. Because, lone up on a big brick like that is a big deal. Very, very effective. So all in all, there's at least two enhancements there I really, really like. I think Droning Chorus is really useful. I'm not so bothered about Insectile Murmuration, especially as it's quite expensive. But the detachment rule looking good, and definitely some enhancements that I would take in here as well. So solid start so far. Then we move it to the stratagems. So we'll start with Nauseating Paroxysms. The Death Guard get all the cool names, don't they? Absolutely amazing. So start of the fight phase, Death Guard infantry unit can force a battle shock on a unit it's in engagement range with at -1 from the result. Battle shock in combat is always really good to have. It can obviously trigger failures, which mean they can't interrupt. They can't use defensive stratagems. Obviously, in Death Guard, you've got several other ways to trigger battle shock too. And synergizing with Nurgle Demons. So I think this gives you fight phase control, and we know that Death Guard as an army really enjoy that. It's not reliable because they could obviously pass it. There's certain armies it's not going to work against, but especially into like Leadership 7 type armies, this is a brilliant way of making sure they can't pop their defenses. So very strong as far as I'm concerned. Next up, we've got Vermin Cloud. I think this is my favourite stratagem in the detachment, having been playing one a bit like this in Brood Surge lately. This is in the fight phase. One Death Guard infantry unit from your army that has not been selected to fight this phase can make pile-ins or consolidate of up to 6 instead of 3. This is really good if you're bundling through things with Death Guard units for getting through a screen and then hitting the thing behind it. So you might clean up a screen with one unit that's tagged onto it, then use a bigger brick, go 6, hit the things behind, tie them up. And it basically means that if you get too close to this force, you could find yourself in very real danger. So very useful strat. You'll find yourself using this one a lot. Next up, we've got Eye of the Swarm. In your shooting phase, one Death Guard infantry unit that's not been selected to shoot, its range weapons can become pistols, excluding blast weapons. So another really powerful strat, just because it can get you out of, if you're jammed up in a situation and you want to just blast your way out of it and then charge something else, you can use your guns to clear off any remaining bodies. So Plague Marines and Blight Lords really like this, and I think it definitely has some application. So I think it's a cool one, situational, but being able to free up one of your bricks to keep moving. And obviously you'll notice with a few of these strats, helping this whole detachment is just helping your slow, stodgy bricks just have a little bit more mobility, not like crazy amounts. We're not talking like massive advance and charge or anything completely loopy, but in a slightly Death Guard, like slow, grindy, pushy way, you're getting a bunch of tools to keep slogging through the trenches, which is obviously what they're all about. So I'm a fan of it. Next up, we've got Droning Horror. In your shooting phase, you can pick a Death Guard infantry unit. You can either reroll a hit roll of 1, or if you're within half range, you can get full rerolls to hit. Plague Marines and Blight Lords really like this. This is just good, right? This is just excellent on Death Guard infantry. Being able to, again, push through some damage into a target, I think that's really, really nice. And you can couple that with wound rerolls from other places to really push your damage and push your kind of application. So I really like Droning Horror as well. These are all good, simple 1 CP strats. We're seeing that as a general trend in the game now. I'm here for it. I much prefer simple, punchy, 1 CP, useful, does a job. not getting too complicated with it. And this is another powerful one. Next up, we've got Innovating Onslaught, another fantastic name. So in the charge phase, just after your Death Guard infantry unit makes a charge move, you can essentially do some impact mortals with it, right? Doesn't work against monsters and vehicles, but against others, you can roll a d6 for each model in your unit that's within engagement range, adding 1 to the result if it's not a cultist or a boxwalker, and for each 5-up, selected enemy unit suffers 1 mortal wound to a maximum of 6. This is quite fun into MSU 1 wound armies or elves, where it gives you some potential, especially comboing with the 6-inch pile-in. For setting up, like there's a damaged target, you pile in, you finish it off with mortals, then you pile in 6. So you charge, finish off with mortals, pile in 6. So you can be coasting through multiple units, which again, it's going to be all about in this detachment, getting the use out of these large infantry bricks and cruising them through into the right places on the board. And I think this is, again, another really nice little tool. You're never going to be sad you've got it. Every now and again, you're just going to need to finish off the last few people in a unit and then move forwards. It is a shame it doesn't work on monsters and vehicles. I guess that does slightly restrain its potential. But certainly people trying to screen you are going to have a hard time if you can just blitz 6 mortal wounds onto the chaff they might want to put in front of you. Finally, we've got Mephitic Invigoration. Using your opponent's shooting phase, you pick a Death Guard infantry within 6 of 1 or more Blight Hauler units. These are quite cheap these days, only 90 points the Blight Hauler that's selected as a target. And until the end of the phase, each time an attack targets your unit, if the strength is greater than the toughness, subtract 1 from the wound roll. Now, obviously, Death Shroud already have access to -1 to wound if their strength is greater, but this is particularly good on Blight Lords or Plague Marines. It's coupled with the stealth. That just means you're going to have a unit at -1 to hit and wound. And you can have a lot of that across the board, right? Which is just going to help you absorb enemy shooting. And it's going to put people under real pressure to come and engage with you in other ways. And obviously, Death Guard are kings of combat control and damage once you get up close. So I think this is effective. I think it's really nice. Obviously, it requires you to have a Mephitic Blight Hauler in the list, but I think a couple of those have real application these days as a scoring piece and a little bit of supporting shooting. It's funny to see them shouted out specifically in this, but I think it works. I'd probably prefer to have seen it be a Death Guard vehicle and then use that. But it's nice to see something that gives them a Mephitic Blight Hauler a design space and helps make it a reason to take it in the list. So really good stratagems, really nice bunch of tricks that all play into how Death Guard like to do business. So what sort of lists are we going to see here? I mean, this really wants you to take combat infantry Death Guard, basically with some shooting that you can amp up, but mostly you're going to waltz to the middle quicker than usual. You're probably going to want some Nurglings to give you channels to move into. Then, Death Shroud, Blight Lords, Plague Marines are going to take the midboard and demand to be dealt with. And you're going to be scoring primarily out of there and threatening a push into the sort of softer parts of the opponent if they give you an in. And you've got various forms of durability in the stealth and the -1 to wound. You've got plenty of forms of offense. And obviously, you're still making their toughness lesser if they're in range through the contagion as well. Now, how powerful is this going to be? I think we've seen some great cuts on Death Shroud lately. And I think Death Guard in general are one of those armies where their stuff is relatively cheap at the moment compared to some of their competitors. So they've been enjoying some success out there in the wild already. Whether this is quite enough to draw a lot of players away from the existing set of powers in Plague Company, which is a very wonderful, powerful detachment with a lot of things going for it in its own right, and is a bit more flexible because of your ability to add a different contagion depending on the opponent for different situations. I think that remains to be seen. But what this definitely is a really fun thematic detachment that I think will make the models you'd expect to put with it, which is slogging infantry, it's going to make them feel like Death Guard, right? People falling short trying to deal with them, people getting caught out if they get too close, pushing that extra bit of damage through. And it might take a bit of respecking to work out exactly what lists look like. Maybe you want more Poxwalkers in there as chaff and distractions and absorptions. Maybe the big Blight Lord bricks will work. Maybe you stick to Death Shroud. Is this something for Plague Marines, or do you go for really durable Terminators with stealth instead? I think Terminator Sorcerers are going to be invaluable in this one for the -1 damage ability, because obviously you've lost the stratagem. But a lot of other things are going to work very effectively in there. And then it's just working out how much supporting shooting you want behind that, really. But all in all, as a Death Guard fan, I really like this set of rules. I'll hopefully be able to give it a game soon into one of the other detachments. We're aiming to put that out on the channel in the future. And I think it's awesome for Death Guard to now have another option that I think when you're looking at it, you think it's a slightly different playstyle, slightly different suite of units, and does a couple of different things. And 6-inch piling, consolidating, and Death Guard is just fun. That alone, I think some Death Guard players, as they go further than they've ever gone, will be very, very happy. So yeah, I think this is awesome. It feels flavorful, feels thematic, and it actually feels like it will have play. It's going to win games. Is it like a top of the meta force? No, maybe not. But I guess that shouldn't necessarily even be the aim with these detachments, right? It's about bringing interesting, balanced options into the game, giving players stuff to get excited about. So that's it for me for this time. Obviously, we're going to be covering all of the Grotmas detachments on 6ms Plus. Please do like, subscribe, and support us. Leave a comment. If you'd like to support us via YouTube membership, you can do so on there as well. We massively appreciate it, and we'll obviously keep on making amazing content for all of you. I'll see you again very soon. We can't wait to find out what the next army is. Lowest of Men out. Bye-bye.